The question of what exactly happens to the bread and wine in the Eucharist is one that has plagued Christian theologians, particularly in the West, for many centuries. Does the bread and wine literally become the body and blood of Christ? Is it just a mystical participation in his body and blood? Is it just a symbol? What even is a symbol? These are all rhetorical questions that Father Alexander Schmemann poses in his book For the Life of the World, Sacraments and Orthodoxy. He answers these questions by posing that they're missing the point. The fact that we even ask all these questions about the bread and wine in isolation, divorced from the rest of the liturgy, is extremely problematic. He explains, "The Eucharist has so often been explained with reference to the gifts alone, what happens to bread and wine and why, and when it happens. But we must understand that what happens to bread and wine happens because something has, first of all, happened to us, to the Church. It is because we have constituted the Church, and this means we have followed Christ in his ascension, because he has accepted us at his table in his kingdom, because, in terms of theology, we have entered the eschaton, and are now standing beyond time and space. It is because all this has first happened to us that something will happen to bread and wine." Throughout the book, Father Schmemann develops the idea that the entire liturgy constitutes the ascension of the Church into heaven, into the pre-eternal eschaton, the heavenly Jerusalem with the one altar and the one high priest, Jesus Christ. The actual offering of the gifts, the bread and the wine, is the full realization of what has already been happening throughout the liturgy. Up to this point, the Eucharist, liturgy, was our ascension in Christ, our entrance in him into the world to come. And now, in this Eucharistic offering in Christ of all things to the one to whom they belong and in whom alone they really exist, this movement of ascension has reached its end. We are at the paschal table of the kingdom. What we have offered, our food, our life, ourselves, and the whole world, we offered in Christ and as Christ, because he himself has assumed our life and is our life. And now all this is given back to us as the gift of new life, and therefore necessarily as food. It is in this context that Father Schmemann then critiques traditional, notably Western, investigations into the bread and wine. "This is my body, this is my blood. Take, eat, drink." And generations upon generations of theologians ask the same questions. How is this possible? How does this happen? And what exactly does happen in this transformation? And when exactly? And what is the cause? No answer seems to be satisfactory. Symbol? But what is a symbol? Substance? Accidents? Yet one immediately feels that something is lacking in all these theories, in which the sacrament is reduced to the categories of time, substance, and causality, the very categories of this world. Something is lacking because the theologian thinks of the sacrament and forgets the liturgy. As a good scientist, he first isolates the object of his study, reduces it to one moment, to one phenomenon, and then, proceeding from the general to the particular, from the known to the unknown, he gives a definition, which in fact raises more questions than it answers. But throughout our study, the main point has been that the whole liturgy is sacramental, that is one transforming act and one ascending movement, and the very goal of this movement of ascension is to take us out of this world and to make us partakers of the world to come. In this world, the one that condemned Christ and by doing so has condemned itself, no bread, no wine can become the body and blood of Christ. Nothing which is a part of it can be sacralized. But the liturgy of the Church is always an amphora, a lifting up, an ascension. The Church fulfills itself in heaven, in that new aeon which Christ has inaugurated in his death, resurrection, and ascension, and which was given to the Church on the day of Pentecost as its life, as the end toward which it moves. In this world, Christ is crucified, his body broken, and his blood shed, and we must go out of this world. We must ascend to heaven in Christ in order to become partakers of the world to come. But this is not another world, different from the one God has created and given to us. It is our same world, already perfected in Christ, but not yet in us. It is our same world, redeemed and restored, in which Christ fills all things with himself. And since God has created the world as food for us, and has given us food as means of communion with him, of life in him, the new food of the new life which we receive from God in his kingdom is Christ himself. He is our bread, because from the very beginning all our hunger was a hunger for him, and all our bread was but a symbol of him, a symbol that had to become reality. He became man and lived in this world. He ate and drank, and this means that the world of which he partook, the very food of our world, became his body, his life. But his life was totally, absolutely Eucharistic. All of it was transformed into communion with God, and all of it ascended into heaven. And now he shares this glorified life with us. What I have done alone, give it now to you. Take, eat.